Hey, what's up, Ham Fam? Welcome back to another episode of Heart as a Mother. We got a special one for you today. If you're new or just tuning in, I am your hostess with the mostest, Jizzy. And with me, as always, is my lovely co host, Harleen.
Hey everybody, I am so excited for this episode. As you've seen on our stories, we were canvassing out in the streets of Calgary.
Do you know what the BIPOC movement is?
No, I do not.
So the BIPOC movement stands for Black Indigenous People of Color, and the movement aims to advocate for inclusivity across all areas of life and to amplify diversity in skin color and race, both visible and invisible discrimination. So have you ever experienced racism?
I don't think so. Like not something that has been direct, I would say.
Towards
like
you?
Yeah, nothing.
Indirectly.
Yeah, but I don't remember a specific instance. Do you remember anything? No, I
Yeah,
don't.
but indirectly, yeah, at workplaces,
Yeah, it's kind of
Few times.
subdued, so it's not upfront, I feel like.
comes across as a joke, but
Yeah.
deep down we know it's probably not a joke.
How does it make you feel because it's not so direct?
It just depends on who it's coming from sometimes, right? So if it's like a friend, like at work or something like that, we are still like okay with it. But sometimes, yeah, like just let it slide, which is probably what we shouldn't, but yeah.
So if it was coming from a complete stranger, would you say you would be more offended, and would you act upon it?
Definitely,
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, for myself, it's never been like I haven't felt like the hate, but it can be a joke. So I think if it's in that regard, it's fine. But if they actually mean it, then it's a different thing. Yeah.
Last question is, if you saw someone making racial slurs in public, whether it's towards your culture or another culture, would you be prone to stopping and saying something, or would you just look and walk away?
No, probably help them out. Yeah, to say something for sure. Yeah, in public. Doesn't matter who it's towards, racism is racism, for sure.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you
Yeah,
so
no
much.
problem.
We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
So, what are your thoughts on terms like the China virus and the Kung flu that was used in the media a lot, especially with certain politicians?
I mean, I don't think it's right. Like, just because of where maybe it came from doesn't mean it's like a reflection on everyone from there.
I agree. I'm on the same page as her. I think it's like ridiculous to just like point fingers at one person
Yeah.
when it's like passed through everyone.
So, what are your thoughts on the UK variant? The UK variant.
Yeah, like I'm from the UK, and like I guess you just like for me, because it's the UK variant, like it's like the same thing, because I wouldn't want people to hate me just because of that's where it came from. So yeah, it shouldn't be judged from just where like a virus comes from.
Yeah, no, I agree again.
And that was actually my next question, was that like if you feel people are making the same association with people from the UK that they're making with like the Chinese people.
I mean, like I guess not as much.
Yeah, not as much.
Actually, like now that
That's a
you
good
ask
point,
it,
yeah.
like now you haven't seen as much association with it, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I haven't noticed or heard as much either. But I don't know.
Do you feel like it's because we as people feel the need to want to blame someone or something for whatever's happening?
Yeah, like I think people do want someone to blame, but like for me, I'm not. Like I wouldn't blame a certain person.
Yeah.
Like it sucks, but no one did this purposely. Do you know what I mean? Because it's such a huge thing. So I don't think you can put it on someone, but I can see why someone would try and like blame someone for it.
Especially in like society now, because then everyone's just like, it's like trending to like hate everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like gotten way out of hand.
So just out of curiosity, do you think that's where it's coming from? People just need or like the idea of hating on someone because it gives them more sense of control, or Yeah, where is it coming from?
Yeah, it's hard because I don't think people could come up with that idea in their head if it didn't come from something else. So maybe it's just like going with everyone else, like someone said it, and so now they're just going with it.
So there's been an increase in obviously Asian hate crime. What are your thoughts of seeing these videos going viral of not necessarily to be politically correct, it's like white people doing it. It's other race and even minorities doing it. Do you think it's a problem with everybody, whatever color you are, or is it there's bugs? or do you think it's like like the term black and white, or is it a problem with every race that is bringing racism?
Like, I don't think I know too much about it to say, but it's again like the blame thing, right? Like, can you just blame one race for something that's a huge issue?
Yeah, especially like in the pandemic when like everyone's in it together. So it's just like pointing fingers when you could just, I don't know, just like work together and get through it. Like it's like it's happening now, so you might as well just like do what's best to help each other and like get over it.
Any more questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I have one last question. If you hear or see anyone, workplace, wherever you are, and people make racial slurs, no, again, guys, no right or wrong answer. Just trying to understand. Would you just look and walk away and say, that guy's an idiot? Or would you say something?
Yeah, like I think you can back me up on this, that I'm definitely one to say something, just because that's who I am as a person. And like I've dealt with like other issues in my family as well, and so I would never sit back and just let someone take the heat for something that really isn't even their fault.
Yeah, especially when you can see them like getting visibly upset and it's like out of like their hands and they didn't do anything. I think it's ridiculous. So like you'd have to stand up and say something, because it's not gonna help anything if you just listen and watch it happen.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
So what are your thoughts on terms like China virus and Kung flu?
I think that's very, very bad to describe coronavirus stuff like that. I think this is mainly because of the former president of the United States. Calling that, I think also, caused a lot of problems. I think one of the main reasons that a lot of Asians get attacked is because of that.
So what are your thoughts on the UK variant? And do you feel like people are making the same association with people from the UK that they are making with Asians?
I don't think so. I think, when people say UK versus like Kung Fu and that kind of stuff, they're totally different, right? They're totally, in the context of a country, you don't say Kung Fu, right? That's more like representing China or Asia, right? So.
So have you guys personally experienced any anti-Asian sentiments yourself, or known of anyone who has?
Oh, definitely. Personally, because I work from home, I didn't really go outside that much. But I was surprised actually a few days ago. I had a meeting with one of my colleagues online, and he lives in downtown, right? So we were kind of joking a little bit. Then he's like, "Oh my gosh, today I got a bad day." I'm like, "Why?" He said he was like sweat off and kind of, all these words you can imagine, like against Asian. He is an Asian guy. Like he was born here and perfectly speaking English, that kind of stuff. So I was shocked actually. So that's the closest one I have. So.
Do you know if he reported that?
I have no idea. I'm not sure if he reported. I hope he did. If not, I can ask him.
Oh, I have a question. So, for the two of you guys, does it scare you seeing all these videos happening with like the Asian community, especially with the elderly? Like, do you think about your parents? Do you think about your grandparents? What are your thoughts on that? And are you two personally trying to educate people around you on what's happening currently?
I think it's definitely scary. I'm scared for any Asians that can be affected by it, especially my parents and my grandparents actually live with us too. So that's definitely something I've thought of. And I think it's good that this is getting on the media, even though it wasn't before. I think it's good that it's getting more coverage right now. And I think it's good because people are finally starting to realize that this is an issue. And I think the awareness needs to be spread.
Sorry, what was the question again?
So the question is, are you afraid for your parents, your grandparents, given that you see all the videos gone viral with attacks on elderly, like in the Asian community? And what are you doing to educate people around you? Or is this even a topic of conversation you're having with family and friends?
Yeah, so this is definitely a conversation that we've been having recently with the recent, I guess you could call it, a rise in Asian hate crimes. I think I personally definitely could probably do a little bit more to try to spread awareness, but that's probably the main thing here, is getting the awareness out there and getting people to know more about this issue because, like you said earlier, associating like coronavirus blindly with, Chinese people and whatever, I think that propagates kind of an unnecessary kind of a racial narrative that causes harm to.
Yeah, I think it was definitely like a form of scapegoating. Like when Donald Trump said that, I think he definitely tried to put the blame on someone else, like as an easy way out for himself.
So have you noticed in the past before like the social media really took off with anti-Asian sentiments and there was more coverage, did you find it hard to speak up about it? Like would incidents happen and you just kind of played it off because you didn't really feel like you had a voice or people would listen?
I definitely think that was an issue before. Since this has only been recently getting media attention, I feel like racism against Asians was definitely not an issue that was taken seriously enough at all. So I am glad that it's gotten more awareness now.
So we are a parenting podcast for you. Obviously, you have 2 kids. What kind of advice would you give to all parents, moms and dads, or anybody raising children on how to educate kids on any type of racism? Not necessarily anti-Asian, but also what would you say to your kids to stick up and stand up for themselves?
I think as parents, it goes the same way as well. Just funny, on our way here, we're talking about the university student in University of Alberta get hurt, like a couple of cuts on the C train. So one is a university student, and my daughter is going to the university, so it's quite scary as well. So it's definitely, when it's your time, don't be quiet. Always speak out, not just the Asian and Black life as well. And we also participate into those protests for Black life. But Asian, typically speaking, is pretty quiet in history. So we want actually for their generation change that. So, yeah, for all the parents and the child. Yeah.
Do you have something to say that?
Sorry, I have one last question for you guys. Sorry. So one last question is, have any of you experienced any racism here in your own hometown? And what was it? And did you say anything to the person that said something to you? Or if someone heard it and spoke up with you?
Yeah, I definitely had. I think that was quite a while ago, probably like 10, more than 10, I think. When I've been in Calgary for more than 20 years now. I remember I went to a Superstore, I believe. That time I lived in Northwest, and parked on the parking lot. And there's a young kid, a white kid, I believe, drove a big truck, I guess. So when I get off my car, he basically, go back to China. And then boom, took off, right? So I didn't have a chance to talk to that kid. I want to tell him that's wrong, but of course, he took off. So that was sort of a little shock to me when I arrived here not long, probably a few years. And but after that, I didn't really personally have that much, many incidents. But of course, people around me, I heard about a lot of things. Yeah.
That's it. Thank you so much. We
Oh, thank you,
appreciate it.
guys.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you guys for doing all of this.
What are your thoughts on making connections between COVID pandemic and the Asian race, specifically Chinese people?
Sorry if you can repeat that.
What are your thoughts on making connections between the COVID pandemic and the Asian race, specifically Chinese people?
I don't really have an answer for that. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on terms like China virus and Kung flu?
I see where. No, I mean, I personally, I haven't even heard that used in the people that I'm working with, so it's not something that I would condone using whatsoever. No.
It's good that you don't really hear it being used around the people you work with. Do you think it can make an impact? Those terms can incite people to,
Definitely, it gives negative connotations and everything else. So no, it shouldn't be anything like that. Should not be said.
Are you aware of what the BIPOC movement is? BIPOC?
No.
Okay. So the BIPOC stands for Black Indigenous People of Color, and the movement aims to advocate for inclusivity across all areas of life and to amplify diversity in skin color and race against both visible and invisible discrimination. So if you see someone or hear anyone in the workplace or anywhere say any inappropriate or racial remarks, would you say anything?
Definitely, yes.
And have you experienced this ever?
Not personally. I work with a lot of people that are very different ethnicities and treat everybody the same way.
Oh, you have a question?
So with the UK variant, have you noticed any increased attacks or anything like that of people of UK nationality?
I haven't, no.
And I guess does it ever make you wonder why that is, or do you have any reason as to why there's not as many attacks that are publicized, I guess, in the media?
No, I don't really. No, sorry. I'm not very good at
That's
this.
okay. That's totally okay. So I'm not sure if you have seen any videos of the elders in the Asian community that's surfacing with people personally attacking them. What are your thoughts on that? Seeing people walking by of that descent just getting attacked because of the pandemic?
No, definitely. I mean, I think we're all in this pandemic together, and to signify or to separate somebody to say that it's because of them is totally wrong. No, I mean it's global.
Yeah. Do you have any kids or grandkids?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a podcast. It's a parenting podcast. Obviously, you're hearing all this racism happening. What do you think we could do as grandparents, parents, or even the community to educate our children? Because most of it does stem at home. What advice would you give to the parenting community?
Just inclusiveness. That it's funny. My grandgirls they're young, and so color doesn't mean anything to them. They don't recognize that as something. It's their friend. It doesn't matter whether they're a different color or anything like that. My daughter lives in Dublin and very accepting of all different nationalities, ethnicities, and very involved in making that statement that it is not just ethnicities but all different people. Yeah. So to go back as to how to teach them, I think books, one way would be like the Bernstein Bears. They probably have come out with something like that about different colors and different things like that. And because I found, going back a ways, when my kids were small, those books always taught great morals and something like that would help make that seem like it's just normal day to day, that the color isn't what makes a person. It's, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So today we are joined by two amazing women. One I want to introduce is Christina Chow with Cooking with Chow, and also with whatever. No, I'm just kidding. I said that to her.
Wow.
Now she's going to be mad at me. But the beautiful Carole from the Commie Tea Room. So welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, so excited
Thanks for having
to be
us.
here.
You're giving me the stink eye right now. You're like, I can't believe you just said
I
whatever.
totally gave you permission to do it, but I'm so glad you went with it. And my name's Carole, not whatever.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Are you though?
I couldn't believe I said that yesterday when I was like, oh, and then whatever. I drew a blank and I was like, oh my God, did I just say that? I'm like, I'm so sorry.
I thought we had a better relationship than this, but okay.
We do. That's, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today to cover a really important topic. And thank you, Carole, for reaching out and wanting to use this platform to kind of spread awareness. So why don't you tell everybody what today is about?
Go ahead.
We're here to talk about anti-Asian sentiments that are being directed at the community right now. It's been going on for a long time, let's be honest, but it really did come to a head a month ago with the Atlanta shootings. And I think it was at that moment that people finally took us seriously. Like, I know for me, I've been posting about anti-Asian sentiments even at a young age, but even like when COVID first started and no one was giving me any credence. They were like, no, you're just in your head. It's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And then, Christina, you also have some thoughts on the matter, obviously, because you're Asian.
I hadn't noticed. I'm just kidding, guys.
Thank you for pointing that out. I'm really happy to be here, and especially being a food creator. Food is something that I'm very passionate about, and I think it's something that I've always thought about in the back of my head, but it wasn't until as Carole had recently said, a month ago when, everything really happened. And I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. It's time for us to really take matters into our own hands. And I think that this podcast gives us a great opportunity to really share awareness about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was super excited when you guys did approach us, because we all have our own platforms. And I feel like we have a sense of responsibility. And I'm actually pretty guilty of not even voicing my own opinion. And this affects me, and this affects my kids and my nieces, my nephew, my family, my friends, and just everybody in general. So I think for me personally, I have to do a better job of saying something. Mm-hmm. Just because it doesn't affect me, it could affect a friend of mine or a family, or just someone that I know of someone, or I heard a story, I still think I need to advocate for it and teach my child. Yeah. In being a better person.
Totally. And we all do, right? And I think that's what we proved last night when we were canvassing. It was really interesting. We approached different people on the streets of Calgary and asked them what they thought about everything. So did you want to talk about that here, or like later?
So
or like later? Like, did you want to go through this first?
No, it's actually
okay.
So I think today there's just so much topics that there's so many things we want to cover. And the biggest thing is we don't want to be 4 Asian women sitting here who are upset, who are mad. We are upset. We are mad, but we don't want to just go on a tangent. We want to sit here and have a better understanding of each other, of our feelings, and also understand where people don't understand us, if that makes sense, and try to articulate it without dropping all the F-bombs and just being upset, because I tend to do that, especially if somebody has hurt me or has hurt people in and around my area. I will spew anything to hurt you, and I can hurt you with my words. So we did go in the streets of Calgary, and we just approached any random demographics, age, and we've asked them questions of if they knew what BIPOC was, the BIPOC movement, sorry. So I think it was 50% of the people that we asked didn't even know what that was. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you guys, do you guys even know what the BIPOC movement is? Because I actually don't know.
Nope.
I don't know what that is.
I learned about it, I think, around Black Lives Matter, but then I do follow a lot of people. Some of them were former guests who are activists and educators. But I think, honestly, if they weren't in my bubble, I wouldn't have known, because I'm familiar with POC, like people of color.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what's BIPOC? And like, oh. And I was like, why those 2 extra letters? I'm sure you're going to get into that. But it does make a difference when you're talking about issues, because they do impact Black and brown folk a lot more.
Yeah. So for people who don't know what BIPOC is, and it's okay, people on the street, like a lot of people were hesitant to even talk to us, and it was like, I
don't know anything.
I don't know anything.
But that's perfect, because we want to know, like, why don't you not know anything? Do you not see it? And we wanted to see things from their point of view. So there really was no right or wrong answers when we were canvassing.
Yeah, and we just wanted honest opinions. So BIPOC movement is Black, Indigenous people of color. The movement aims to advocate for inclusivity across all areas of life and to amplify diversity in skin color and race, both visible and invisible discrimination. I know that there was a question that you were asking when we were canvassing, Carole, where what were your thoughts on terms like China virus and Kung flu? What was it? What kind of sentiments did you hear out on the streets?
I heard mostly, it was very across the board. Everyone said it was not the appropriate term to call the virus. It wasn't right. They were really able to like pinpoint that. I think because I think that is one very overt example of racism. And I think many people can agree it's wrong, which is good. I think that is really good, and that was encouraging. But I think just what I did notice from our canvassing was that many people just weren't really aware of other anti-Asian acts or sentiments, or just how Asian individuals feel right now. Because I think when we're asking non-Asian individuals, they were like, oh, like I know I've heard of Kung Flu because of that orange ridiculous person down south, but otherwise I don't know much about, stuff the Asian community is facing. So it was good and bad, I guess, for me.
Yeah, and I know that in Vancouver, it's so publicized out there, but it's not here. Why is that? Is it because we're so spread out versus like Vancouver's just so much small? Like they're bigger, but they're like
denser.
Dense, yeah.
And they're more unified, maybe. They have like more organizations to kind of speak on these issues. Honestly, I don't know how many there are in Calgary.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like the Asian community in Vancouver is definitely far bigger than it is here in Calgary.
Yeah.
But do you think they also speak up more than people, Asian community in Calgary?
I think maybe they speak up more because there's more of them. Like here, it's like, I was just talking to my friend about it because I asked her, I was like, did you ever experience racism? And she brought up the fact that like in our culture, it's kind of like you learn to kind of not push it aside, but like, or not accept it either, but just kind of stay quiet.
Yeah.
And so if we're not in large numbers and something happens and it's like, well, there's no one else around me who can vouch for this, so maybe I'll keep my mouth shut. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, that's a great point. I remember when I was in Vancouver, I went to the Richmond TNT and I looked there and I was like, there's like not a single other person that's not Asian here. And I'm like, I would like for someone to come in here and do like, create an act like that, like see what would happen to them.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Because they know that they're outnumbered.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just going back to what you were saying earlier, maybe because there are so many Asians living in Vancouver, the police know they have to answer to them. Like, there's definitely more pressure. There's also more Asians in power, Asians holding money, maybe money where people with hands in the pockets of the police. So, yeah.
That's true. I do find that there's a lot of Asians that are living in Vancouver. Like they don't necessarily live there. Like that's like their vacation home. It's like their place. And maybe because they actually do have money, that there's a little bit more power versus the Asians that are in Calgary. Am I wrong? Like I don't know.
Yeah, and I think to that point, like if Vancouver's their vacation home, Vancouver's not their place to live, right? And so maybe they're not as inclined to speak about these problems because I'm sure back in China, this is not what's going on down there, right?
I guess my question to all of you guys here at the table is: has your parents ever experienced racism if you're with them, or have you heard about it, or in the workplace? And how did it make you guys feel? Like obviously we're now in an age where we can do something versus when we were I don't know, maybe like teenagers, and
Yeah.
we couldn't really say much.
Yeah, no, like I remember even me as a child, my mom would always, ask me to translate things. When she'd speak to tell us on the phone, like they would be very like rude to her, and they would be like, "Excuse me, ma'am, like can you speak clearly? Like I can't understand what you're saying." And then my mom would be like, "Hey, like can you just talk to my daughter instead?" Right? And so growing up, I remember me thinking, "Oh, like I wish my mom could speak better English. I wish this," right? And I was kind of ashamed of that, but it wasn't until I was reading posts when the Stop Asian movement started happening, and I was reading all these posts of other people that had faced similar things, and I was crying because I was like, oh my gosh, like now I look back on it and I wish that I could have been more grateful to help my mother back then.
Yeah.
I actually just most recent when the pandemic hit, I actually had to go to a different department, and it was the hardest because it was I was helping families put internet up, so a lot of them were spoke different languages, and I would be on the phone for 45 minutes because I couldn't understand. And I'm not gonna lie, I was really frustrated. I was like, like why am I on here? And then I think for a second a lady said, "I'm so sorry, my English is bad." I stopped for a second and I said, "Wow, Harleen, you are the biggest asshole. And think about your mom who can speak English, but it's not the greatest still."
Yeah.
Like how are you so mean? Like, so after that, I like literally would ask them, "Hey, what language do you speak?" And I would get onto our chat group. I'm like, "I need an XXX language speaking translator for this specific person."
Right.
And right now, what I really love about this organization that I work for is they're really heavy on multicultural.
Good.
They need
amazing.
diversity and inclusivity, and it's weird for me to talk about because usually I like this is the largest organization I've worked for, and I always feel like when I'm working somewhere I'm like just a number because you could always get replaced, but I really don't feel this way, and they are pushing for diversity, making sure that we have someone who speaks every language in Canada, whoever
Well, that's a huge responsibility too,
It
especially
is.
for huge conglomerates. Like they need to do that.
Yeah.
Like I know for me, my mom would come home from Superstore and she was upset. She's like, "There's this woman, this white lady in the parking lot told me to go back to my country." And at the time, it's like she told me this, and I was like, "That's fucked up." But whenever I was with her, it never happened because what's going to happen is they know that the kid is going to speak up for the parents, right? So I feel like it's just a cowardly move, and not to mention that, this is stolen land and that if I go back to my country, maybe you should go back to yours,
And give back the land. Yeah, give back the land to the indigenous.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for people who was born here like yourself, this is your country. What are you talking about?
Also, why is that always the first insult they turn to? Go back home.
Yeah.
Why is that so insulting? I'd be more insulted or offended, honestly, if they called me ugly. But sometimes I'm just like, okay, it's like a non-insult, but they seem to be coming from this place like, yeah, that should really hurt. Nope. It's just annoying.
Yeah.
What about the British people that are here? Tell them to go back to their country. But they don't say that because they're white.
Yeah.
And also their accent is desirable. Like you hear a British accent and you melt. You're not like, speak up, please. Can you be more clear?
Yeah.
It's very different.
This actually came to me while I was showering today.
Nice.
It's so weird. But do you think people get so annoyed with us because they don't understand us culturally and we don't understand their thinking and logic? So my example is when I was younger, I worked at this place where there was literally a sign that says, "Do not spit in the sink." Okay? Filipino people spit in the kitchen sink. Like I've seen my dad do it, and it's kind of gross because that's where you wash and clean or whatever. But I guess somebody did it at the workplace and people were getting mad. Do you think it's because culturally we don't understand each other and why we say mean things? Like I don't know, is it?
I definitely think it comes from a lack of understanding and also a lack of willingness to understand. Because if you are someone who's in the dominant group, you're represented, It's so easy just to rant to one of your friends who's just like you. Oh my God, that is so gross.
Yeah.
I'm sure if maybe like you're the one white person in a group of all Filipinos, you would have a very different mentality. So when you have that luxury of not having to care, why would you? It's so much easier to pass judgment.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also feel like it comes down to like who's in your own peer group as well, right? And like when you're younger, sometimes it's best to expose yourself to other things, because I feel like the older you get, you become, you know, a little more narrow-minded, and then that ends up being, you know, the generation that you end up raising, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is that I was talking to one of my friends, and she said that a little boy came up to her and was just like, "Do you speak Chinese?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "You know, that's not the only Asian there is." You know what I mean? And so I asked, "How old was this kid?" And she's like, "I don't know, like 12." I'm like, "That's old enough."
Oh, that is so old enough.
So old. Like,
no
so,
excuses.
I mean,
no
like
excuses.
that means that he was never exposed to any other Asian before that, or even taught about it. Like to me, it just boggled my mind, because I'm like, really, 12-year-olds are out there running around thinking this, which means there's probably more of him, which means it's just perpetrating this whole thing, because it starts at home, right? So.
Well, okay, let's all be real for 1 second, which sometimes this really, like, when we talk about areas of Calgary, like there's areas that's predominantly Caucasian or Southeast Asian or a little bit mix of, you know, everything. Maybe they just don't get out of their bubble. But I mean, do they watch the news? I mean, I just don't. And when did you guys actually experience racism? Because I'm thinking about when from kindergarten to grade 6, I'm kind of thinking about when I actually became self-aware of it, because I don't think I was. I predominantly grew up in Caucasian. I was the only brown person in my school from K to 6. There's a couple, but it was like it was literally all white until I got to grade 7, moved to the Northeast,
wow.
and I was culture shocked a bit, because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, there's more people than me, and I you know, and I didn't know this existed. So do you think it is up to teachers and parents to educate their kids? Because I mean, sometimes parents just doesn't they don't know. How can children or even adults who are living in their bubble get more aware of their
Yeah, well, I totally feel like
city?
it is up to like teachers and parents, like your elders, basically, to
Yeah.
give you that representation. So I know for like now, in education, especially the area I work in, they're making a big move to include texts that do reflect diverse voices, and does make a huge difference. I know for me, when I was reading, I forget what book it was, but they had like a character with an Asian sounding name. Lee was their last name. I was so excited. It was To Kill a Mockingbird, because her last name, the author's last name is Harper Lee. And I'm like, oh my God, she's Asian.
Yeah.
And I'm reading her work and I get to study it. I was so proud. And then I found out it was a white girl. I'm like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Sorry. Am I allowed to swear in this? Probably not.
No, you can.
Do you know who Heart is?
Well, you said the F later, so I was like, is
I'm
that
like, now
okay?
you're
Breaking the ice.
Oh, sorry.
Your name's just gonna be whatever. It's whatever.
But
Shut up.
to what you were saying before about parents being in a bubble, I don't think that's an excuse at all.
No.
Like,
no.
just like you teach your kids manners towards other people, you should be teaching them about other races, because it's like, well, for like here in Canada, you're in Canada, and it's very diverse and multicultural. So being in a bubble is not, I don't think that's an excuse, and I don't think that is appropriate either, because it's kind of like you're keeping your kids in a bubble, and then they get out into the real world and they say things like, do you speak Chinese, to like just any random Asian, you know what I mean? So I think it's the responsibility of the parents to not be in that bubble, and, you know, celebrate diversity and include that in what they teach their kids.
I guess the question is how to encourage parents to do that, especially non-BIPOC parents. Again, when there's no motivation. Like, if they stay in their bubble, what is the incentive for them? Like, you're saying, like, you're going to have a kid that will embarrass you later, but do they care? Like, is that going to be embarrassing for them at all if they have a kid that asks impolite questions? Probably not. Yeah. I think that's kind of what's really frustrating for me, because even sometimes when I talk to friends who don't have these shared experiences, they're like, well, it just doesn't seem like such a big deal to me right now. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Well, that's what that one guy said yesterday. He said, he's like, honestly, I don't give a shit. Like, he blatantly he's just said, I don't care. He doesn't care if you're black, you're white, you're brown, South Asian. He doesn't care. If you do your job and you do good, that's it. I'm like, okay.
Well, that's kind of just turning a blind eye.
Yeah, which is fair statement. However, it's just like, that's not really enough. Like, there's a lot of people that just don't give a shit. And it's almost like, if I walked over and punched your grandma in the face, just, I don't know, because she has too much wrinkles, like, it's almost like that. You know, maybe I'm not using a...
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm just saying.
Stay away from my grandma.
But that's how it is. It's like, you know, the elders who are walking, like, I am fearful for my mom to just walk around. I mean, for me, and for all of us sitting here, we're firecrackers. Someone dares out, we'll like chase them down. But I mean, just if, you know, when they're walking and they get punched in the face or drop kicked, and that video that came out, it wasn't even a Caucasian person who did it. It was a minority.
Oh, are you talking about the one of the Filipino lady in front of the bank?
Yeah, in front of the bank.
Yeah, where security closed the door on her.
Oh.
And he was also a minority.
Right.
And I was like, he was actually black. And I was like, if that was a black person, you probably would have charged her outside and been all like, hey,
Totally.
hey, chan, chan. And
There would have been riots.
yeah, there would have been riots. But because it's like, look, I'm like, you couldn't even go out
To help her.
to say,
Yeah.
are you okay? Or
Yep.
call someone. You're a
Security
fucking
guard.
security guard. I can hear your fire.
Very upset.
You know what I mean? And I was like,
Yeah.
I was shocked.
I think it's because when we watch videos like that, we can't help but think, like, if that was us, would no one help us, right? Like, it just, you can't help but emphasize with that situation.
And I think it's really frustrating, like you were saying, when it is someone of color. And it's also someone of color from a community that I know all of us at some point have really supported during their movements, when you're feeling like, okay, where is the reciprocity?
Right.
But the problem is, I feel like, and honestly, this is something I'm still learning about, is that there is a lot of like racism between minorities too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
However, as easy it would be to blame those races, those minority races, at the end of the day, what I'm learning is that all of that is still actually grounded in white supremacy. The idea that proximity to whiteness makes some groups better, and some, for example, if we look at China, there was a lot of anti-blackness during COVID, because I think during the border, there was some black employees that crossed the border, and they were all confined to their hotels and not allowed to go anywhere. And there were stores putting out signs that if you're black, you can't eat here. Dogs and black people can't eat here. So there were statements like that being used, and I know as someone who's Chinese, there's a lot of anti-blackness in that culture too, but it kind of comes from the idea that they're beneath us and we're closer, we have more proximity to whiteness, so we're better. So it's still kind of coming from a place where we're comparing ourselves.
Oh, like based off of the shade of our skin.
Right. So that colorism.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So it's there, and maybe even the people who are like the Asians, the Chinese people who are perpetrating this aren't even aware that's steeped in white supremacy, but it is. So I think if we start blaming other minorities, it'll be so easy, but we can't turn on each other. Like, we have to turn on this system that's kind of keeping or allowing these things to perpetuate. But it's hard, because when you're angry and you're hurt, who else are you going to blame, right?
Right.
Yeah,
That's the thing, is that everyone is always looking for someone to blame. That's what we were saying yesterday. And that's what you wanted to talk about today, was about the model minority myth and conditioned complacency. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, you were asking about our childhood experiences. For a long time, I did believe in the fact that what my parents told me, that if you're Asian, you're hardworking and people respect you, specifically white people respect you. And it was true, because in class, they were like, Asian, she's good at math, she's quiet, and she's studious.
Right? And then there's me, drops out of accounting. Well, like, I'm not that smart.
It's okay, I dropped out of nursing, so.
Actually,
high five, girl.
I dropped out of pharmacy, so yay!
Dropouts.
Yeah, we're a table of Asian dropouts.
Asian dropouts.
We're going to have to change our names now. We're going to start a whole new podcast called
Asian Dropouts.
I love that. Yeah. Such an angle. But the problem actually was, when I was younger, I did do everything they expected. I was quiet. I was shy. I was good enough at math. So for a long time, because the narrative, the model minority narrative was working for me, I didn't contest it. And so if I saw someone that was of color and not doing as great, I'm like, it's because they're lazy. Or like if someone was indigenous, I'm like, it's because she's not working as hard as me, because I did it and I'm of color too. And just to clarify, the model minority myth is basically this idea that paints Asians, specifically East Asians, as hardworking, loyal, in contrast to bad minorities, those who are lazy, incomplacent, contrary. And East Asians are usually praised because we don't make trouble, which I think is very true even up until this point. And white supremacists in particular use this myth to drive a wedge between Asians and other people of color. It's like, hey, other people of color, these guys made it. And look, they don't cause trouble for us. And Asians love this because like it works for them for a really long time until now. And now we realize no one's standing up for us because we haven't been helping them either, let's be honest. But when I was growing up, I really bought into this too. And I used to think that it was their fault, not mine, that we were at different places in our life. So I think that's something I'm just really still coming to terms with, but I really do want to talk more of, because I feel like the more we realize it, the more we can just stop turning on each other.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I honestly didn't even know that. And it's true. Like I think that when I was telling Giselle, I was like, I feel like I'm privileged. Like, I know that we all, I went on a rant in our chat group about like, how come no one's supporting anything in Black Lives Matter? They supported it. And I just want to say thank you so much to the three of you for giving me a safe space to say things that aren't always necessarily acceptable, but I needed to say it because I was upset, but I needed to talk it out with people who are putting me in a safe space. So thank you. If we could do that in our community without having to like jump and punch or whatever, I think we're one step to like a better community. Like I always thought that I was still privileged than most other, minorities, especially in the Black community. Because I mean, I've worked with them. I've worked with the kids. I've seen the way other people look at them, and they look at them in disgust, and it upsets me. It really does, because, when you have kids who say, "Why are you so nice to me?" Like, that's sad. That's sad. That's what they're growing up into. And plus their living conditions too isn't all the greatest. It's just they're born into it, trying to get a better life, but people are not trying to understand them. They just try to judge them. I mean, and for us, it's like, oh, it's okay. Filipino people, like, especially with Filipino people, oh my God, Filipino people are so nice. I was like, no, I've met some fucking pretty shitty Filipino people, and they're not hospital. Like, I'm telling you, but that's what it is. And then we're stigmatized as, oh my God, are you a nurse, or are you do you work at Tim Hortons? Do you whatever? Like, we're cleaners, and I'm like, no, that's not what we are. It's like, I hate when I meet someone, like, because I'm dating, right? So they'll be like, oh yeah, my buddy, he's got a Filipina girlfriend. She's so beautiful and nice, and
I hate that.
we love
hate it
Yeah,
when that
hold on,
happens.
this one's for you, Christina. We love pancit and spring rolls. Like, get out of here. Like, like.
Did you say, well, I love mashed potatoes?
I was like that skit on YouTube where she starts mocking British people because this guy asks her where you're from. It's like, oh, hello, top of the morning to you.
Yeah.
It's like,
That was
is that
really
what we
good.
do?
That's so good.
Thank you. Everyone else makes fun of my accent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, it has nothing to do with the conversation we've had.
Or you as a person.
Yeah, except for
Can you
bringing
look
up-
past your color of my skin, please?
Also, the minute someone says like I am diverse and accepting because I have a partner who's of color, and usually it's like female and usually Asian, I'm like, shut the fuck up, get
my
away from me.
girlfriend is Asian and XXX.
Means nothing.
I was
Yeah,
like,
I had Chinese food once, and it was so good.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
And I order ginger beef all the time now.
Oh, really? Ginger beef?
hold on. Oh yeah, we always used to eat sushi, and then I'll go with them, and they're like, hi, I'll have a California roll and a dynamite roll. I was like,
and a cucumber roll.
The fuck?
I do like those rolls, Olga, okay? I'm pretty whitewashed that way.
Oh my! And we sit here and laugh about it, but I think we just got accustomed to it, and now we it's just like, ugh, I can't believe you're so ignorant in saying it. We should be correcting it, because for me, I just usually won't, and then I'll turn around and tell her, be like, oh my God, this is what happened. But that's my fault, because I'm not saying anything, right?
Yeah. That was, and to your point, like that was a really good eye-opening kind of piece that you said there, because I didn't see it that way about like pitting us against each other. So now that you said it, and it's in the universe and it's on the podcast, so hopefully that's that's how others will think. And so, like, Christina, you have a cooking show.
Yep.
I
Guilty.
love everything that
Your
you cook.
food is
First
so
of all,
good.
It's just creeping your recipes.
Okay,
yeah.
No. Okay, it's not about that today.
Yeah,
ladies.
no, but I know that this whole movement has you heated because of it ties into what you're doing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess the big thing about food that I, really want to educate to people is I feel like there's a stigma behind just Asian food in general, where people are very, they'll like Western versions of things, but they won't, try the actual authentic way it's made. And so I think that the main thing I really want to get across to people is that you can make this delicious Asian authentic, food at home, but you don't have to Westernize it and like bastardize. Is that the word? Bastardize?
Bastardize?
Yeah. Bastardize. That's a word. In a way that it's like, becomes this thing that you're like, no, that's not what pho is, right? And so it actually comes down to, so a long time ago.
It's not pho.
Oh, I love pho. Oh,
Pho? Am I saying that right?
Wait, how do you say it again?
What? That's what it's called. I've been calling it it's just funny.
Exactly. So MSG is a big thing that is in food. It's like, so basically if people don't know what MSG is, it comes from glutamate, which is a common amino acid or protein building block found in food. And it's actually very common in breast milk, I just found out.
What?
Yeah, so it's like the taste of like savory
Umami in
exactly.
breast milk.
Umaminess, right?
That's
And like
weird.
it makes sense why even like we as adults love that flavor because we know it, right? Like
Oh my
that's
God.
what we know.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly. And so what's crazy is that there was this term actually. It was called Chinese restaurant syndrome, which was in Merriam-Webster's like dictionary. And essentially it talked about, people after eating Chinese food, they had the symptom of like dizziness, they felt fatigued, they didn't feel good, like they might have to go to the hospital. And then essentially this came out and people started to associate Chinese food as, something that was bad or, it made them feel gross and stuff. And it really started to become this thing where people wouldn't want to try, Chinese food, or Chinese food became unhealthy. And the crazy thing about it actually is that Chinese food, like westernized Chinese food, is not actually what Chinese food is.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a way, we've almost like commercialized like Asian people to become this, this taste palette for Western individuals when it's actually not what it is. But then in the end, we end up getting like criticized for creating it, which is like absolutely crazy. And like the crazy thing is MSG is found in Dorito chips. It's in ranch dressing. We don't hear any of, those people going to the hospital or getting fatigued or dizzy from eating that, right?
That is crazy.
Yeah, that is. I had no idea about the breast milk thing, and everyone's always all about the breast milk. You know what I mean? Like people will drink it if they're trying to like bulk up, or you know what I mean?
I did not hear about that.
Yeah.
They do really?
Yeah, they do.
Like bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Where are they getting the breast milk then? Sorry, off topic.
Black market breast milk.
There probably is women that are selling.
Oh yeah, there's people who are selling. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
for sure.
If you like create a lot, maybe you produce a lot. Why not?
Yep. Yeah, and that's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then I don't know. It just like I think it. So an interesting thing to the pho, when I did a quick Google search of pho, the top 2 recipes that are most highly rated, top 2 Google searches are from people that are not are not Asian or they're not Vietnamese. It's like white creators. And it's just crazy to think that like why is it that when a white person puts out a recipe, it then becomes a standard that people are like, okay, you know what? I will take a look at this, right? But when it's a authentic version that's coming from a Vietnamese lady, people are like, you know, maybe I don't understand some of it. I'm not going to try, right? And so it poses this question as like, who gets to be the individual that introduces new ingredients to the Western society? Like, when is it, you know, socially acceptable for someone that is of color to be that role model for?
Right.
Yeah. Do you think it's because people just don't understand the ingredients, and then the person who is not, like, who's white, who does this, actually uses something that people are more like aware of, and it's just easier?
Yeah, it could be that for sure. But I also, like, I remember even growing up, like, I had tofu, like, you know, tofu pudding when I was in like grade school. I had dumplings, and people would be like, oh, that smells. Like, I don't like what that is, right? And people thought that was weird. And it could just be the fact that it's something different and they haven't tried it before. And because food is such, you know, it's a big thing. It's how we learn. It's how we teach other people about different cultures. If you're just eating, you know, I don't know, something that's not Asian or something, anything else, you're going to be like, oh, that smells weird, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people still say that in workplaces. It's, you know, and to your point is, I can recall actually twice where, you know, where they are like, hey, bring food, hamper or whatever, the food.
Yeah.
So anyways, you know, like, I was in grade 1 and my mom gave me sardines to donate. So I put it on the table, and one of the helper was like, the teacher's aide was like, hey, who brought this? And somebody laughed and was like, ew, disgusting. And then of course I didn't pipe up and say that was me, but now today I'd be like,
now you'd be like,
I was like,
what did you say?
I brought sardines and it's good with potatoes and vermicelli. Okay.
Yeah.
So I couldn't say anything. And even then, like, they were saying like my food was stinky, or like, what's that smell? So to the point that I would pretend that I wasn't even hungry during lunch, and that I didn't eat my lunch, and I would throw it in the garbage. And one time my mom actually caught it in my bag because it was accumulating and I just forgot to throw it. So I got in so much trouble, and my mom's like, I'm just not gonna, you know, make you lunch anymore. But I couldn't really explain to my parents why I was doing that. I was just like, oh, I forgot. Like,
and I think, you were saying something similar. It's like that pain you see now, the fact that the money my parents didn't have a lot of money then, that they spent creating these beautiful lunches for you that you were throwing away, and the pain you were causing them. And again, they couldn't relate either.
Yeah.
And it really sucks because like food brings people together. But then when you attack someone's food, it's like such incredible shame you create for them. It's like the worst thing you could say, especially at a young age.
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly.
Ugh.
I mean, I think there's a nicer way of, like, if you don't like the food and you just say no, thank you, or what, you know, in a polite way. You don't have to be like,
or be curious, like, hey, what is that?
Or
yeah.
Like, I mean, there's other times that I didn't, like, some food just didn't smell good and it didn't taste good. But there's times where I'm like, it did taste good, and I'm gonna try it. Like, honestly, like, I love street food. I don't know what it is. Like, I love, like, the grit of, like, street food.
This is super authentic.
Yeah.
So when it comes to those websites that you were talking about, do people actually comment on it and like and say like, okay, I'm Vietnamese and this is not how you make pho? Like,
well, so that's a great point you bring up. So there's a really famous food blogger out there, and she created a chicken pho recipe. In her photo, she put like raw shallots, like other vegetables in there that's not commonly in, you know, authentic pho. And people are commenting, they're like, this is not like what pho is. And instead of responding to them, she just changes the title of the recipe.
To what?
To sesame chicken noodle soup or something. And the Asian community was outraged. They're like, this creator, I follow, I love her recipes. Why is she not speaking out about this, right? And like, you know, like, yes, you can change your title, but maybe put a little blurb that says, hey, like, you know, now I've educated myself. I understand that, you know, I should have respected the culture a little bit more. I should have talked about it more and shouldn't have done, you know, X, Y, and Z. And I think that would have been completely fine, but it was kind of just a little like change, and then just a, you know, look of
just make yourself look better.
Exactly. Just looked away and then kind of just like just left it as is, which is really unfortunate to hear. So something I saw actually that a quote that really resonated with me said, Americans may love Chinese food, but they don't love the people who make it. And I was like, oh, that's
that's really powerful statement right there.
Yeah, and and she kind of goes on, she says, they treat Chinatowns like playgrounds, their restaurants like backdrops for photos. They reach for the products of Chinese labor and with the same hands knock them down on the street. And I read that and I was like, you know what, it's very true, because I feel like just not even just Chinese people, but Asian people in general in this Western society have become so commercialized, and they're like, you know what, we like this from you, we like your food, we like these backdrops, but everything else you can take back.
Exactly. Like they're selective about what they like about it.
Well, it's like that guy that we interviewed, he's like, I don't give a shit. It's like, well, you can't, because Asian products are everywhere. Our food is everywhere. It impacts you.
I mean, they're in 7-Eleven. It's like, I'm serious. Like even 7-Eleven, Max or Circle K, like the Asian food there's sections and they're getting bigger. So why is it that you guys love all that, but you just don't like, I just don't understand. Like, I think I want to understand if when somebody says, go back to your country, I really just want to ask them, like, why would you say that?
Yeah, like, I'll go back to my country, but can I take everything with me? And then you got nothing.
Yeah. I'll take your phone. I'll take your shoes.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. If we all went back to our countries, they would have the most boring ass country here.
No kidding.
What do they have from those colonizing countries? They have potatoes.
I'm gonna bring my punset back. Okay, you got that. No more punset
our
for you
spices,
guys.
our Ceylon cinnamon, our soy sauce.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know a whole Chrissy Teigen. Yeah, she's come out with. Do you think she comes out with very authentic stuff? Because I watch some of the things that she makes, and her mom actually has like an authentic. It's Thai. They're Thai.
Yeah. Thai,
yeah. I like that she's doing that, but I am curious if she's actually advocating more so of like her food, or is she westernizing her food? Like I don't know. I don't follow her.
Yeah, I mean,
extensively.
I've made a couple of her recipes before, and I think she has so in her cookbook, she has like different sections. She has some that are, recipes from her mom, and then she has her section of like
Super Bowl stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
so
I think
it's different.
Exactly, and it's a mix, and I understand that, food is very common. We all eat it, and great food comes from fusions of different things, and I totally understand that as well. I think the main thing that I want you, even for myself, to remember is when you're looking for recipes or things, give credit back, to those people. Maybe talk about the origin of the ingredients, and like also educate yourself on what you're eating and the background behind it, instead of just mixing it together and be like, oh, this is what it is, right? And even for myself, like I'm trying to do that going forward as well, because it's such a learning experience for everyone, right? Like I've had fond moments eating at my friends' houses that, I ate something that was completely different, and I was like, wow, what is that, right? What's that taste bud? Because our taste buds don't lie, right? Like our mouths we're not racist with our taste buds, right? Yeah. Good food tastes good at the end of the day, period.
Yeah. Doesn't matter where it's from.
Exactly. Doesn't matter who cooked it, whatever, right? And so I think that just like how our taste buds are, that's how we should also view people too. I know it sounds so simple, but it's not always the case.
Right. And just like you, Christina, I was also ashamed for what I ate in school too. Like I came to the point where I stopped asking my parents to pack me what I really want for lunch, because I would get laughed at, or they'd be like, "Oh, what is that?" Right? And then I'd be like, "Oh, I'm never bringing this to school again." And then I would see what all like the rich white kids had, like, the processed whatever's packaged. I was like, "Oh my God, I want that." So we'd go to the store and I'd say, "Mom, I need you to buy me the snack because everyone's eating it at school." And then she'd look at it and she'd be like, "Why? That doesn't even look good," or "It's too expensive," or just, have what I give you or whatever. And, I would just beg them. I'm like, I just want to eat what the other kids are eating. Right. And so growing up, that was a huge thing for me too, is that I couldn't even have what I wanted to have for lunch because I'd get made fun of. So yeah, it's like across the board, I feel like.
Yeah. Do you think that when Ava starts going to school, you would give her, or when you guys decide to have kids, you would pack authentic food from your culture?
Oh yeah, it's also easier now because there's so many school populations are so much more diverse, it's almost like going through a cafeteria and seeing someone eat ham cheese sandwich is weird.
But also, they have all these like restrictions at school about like peanuts.
Yes.
So it's like, don't bring anything that's cooked in
Oh,
peanut
true.
oil. Don't bring this and this and that. And it's just like, damn. Like, my mom used to send me with whatever, but now you got to be like really careful now. But when she goes to school now and they provide her lunches, but like you know what D-list is, right?
Yeah.
It's fried anchovies.
Oh,
That is her
yeah.
favorite snack.
Yo, I love anchovies.
She has
It's
it in
so
the
good,
morning
right? So good.
with her waffles. Like
I
not
love
not
that.
not like with her waffles, but like on the side, and she'll just munch on them.
Yeah.
And then but she like that's something that she probably wouldn't even bring to school. Right?
Or people would be like, ew, what's that?
Yeah.
You know
Like,
what I mean?
you're eating
No.
fish
Yeah.
or whatever, right? But she loves it.
Well, the thing is, I didn't really do that with Jaden. He's 15 now because I was traumatized as a child. So I really westernized everything else until he was like, Mom, can you give me like a rice and chicken or adobo? And then I was like, oh, okay. He's like, I want to take that. I was okay. And then that's where I stopped. And I was like, you know what? If that's what he wants to eat, I'm going to let him eat it. And, you know, and I started trying to teach him, like, don't let anyone tell you can't. And then he's like, you know, the lunch lady always comes by me every day because she wants to see what my lunch is because she said that I'm
that's
lucky, right? And I was like, yeah, that's right, you are lucky, you have hot rice in your bag, everybody else has cold sandwiches. So so that's why I kind of asked that because I when he first started, I didn't want him to feel ashamed.
I also feel like when you're a parent, it's a little different, right? Like I can say right now, no, I'm gonna give them authentic food. I'm gonna bring them enough to feed their friends too,
Yeah.
right? Stick it in their mouths.
Still try this dumpling.
Force it on them. Yeah.
They will shut up quickly right there. But no, I mean, it's always, I think it's, like totally fair. Like even when I was a kid, I didn't want to, associate myself with Asian food. But as I learn now, I'm very happy of where I grew up, my roots, and I want to hopefully carry that on to my children as well.
So I have a question for the three of you. We were interviewing this guy yesterday, and we asked him if he had ever experienced any racism. And he says, well, in my group of friends, it's kind of like it's jokes. Like we're racist and it's joking. So I want to ask you guys, like, where do you draw the line on the jokes? Because in my group of friends, there's tons of jokes, and most of my friends are Asian, but it's like the Vietnamese are racist towards the Filipinos, and then the Chinese are racist to the Vietnamese. You know what I mean? You know, kind of like what Ali Wong was saying about the jungle Asians and the other Asians or whatever. The fancy Asians.
Yo, I love Ali Wong.
I love her, right?
We talked about this.
Yeah.
My print is her.
Oh, is it? Oh, yes. Yeah, it is. But yeah, so like, how do you draw the line? Like, when do you say, hey, that wasn't cool, let me educate you? Do you guys do that? Or like,
Yeah. Well, I think for me personally, when it's an Asian, I don't know, when it's like, someone that's Asian, I'm like, oh, like it's whatever, it's jokes for me. But when it's someone that's not, I'm like, oh, wait, maybe they shouldn't have said that. But I remember, like, I was at a party a couple of years ago, and I had this white guy come up to me, and he's like, hey, you don't look like how you speak. I'm like, wait, what? Sorry, what? The fuck does that even mean? He's like, you sound like a basic white girl.
You're like, what?
I'm like, I'm sorry? And he's like, yeah. He's like, so your voice doesn't match what you look like. Like, am I supposed to say thank you? Like, and in that moment I was like, okay. And I look back on that moment, and sometimes I wish I had said something.
yeah, you should have been like, you sound like you have a dick in your mouth.
Yeah, right? And
If not, let me put one in for you. Just kidding.
see, that's what I should have said.
See, like, you get heated. I get heated.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just, I don't know. In that moment, I think it's because we've kind of grown up with this viewpoint that Western is beautiful.
right.
White is beautiful, right? And I was like, I remember sometimes I'd ask my friends, I'm like, oh, do I look really Asian today? They're like, wait, what do you mean? Like, what does that even mean? Right? And I'm like, oh, like how do I look, right? And so now I think about that, and I'm like, why? Why is white deemed beautiful? Why? I don't know. It's just really sad.
Like in our culture where we sell whitening soap.
Yeah. Like, it's funny because Jaden is like, my son is like a really, oh my God, different shade of Filipino. Like
He's dark.
he's
yeah.
so dark. And I'm like, and the other day I was like, it's not even sunny out. How did you get this dark? And I'm totally okay with it. I want him to embrace himself. To the point where even like now, and you know, my mom would be like, put a sweater on him. He's gonna get dark. I was like, what the fuck? He just wants to fucking swim. Oh my God, look, he looks like one of those jungle Filipinos because they're darker. He's like, it looks like an Igorot, like go whatever. And I was just like, really? Like that's what, and even in Philippines, I when I went there, I was so shocked because they had a help wanted posted, and it says must be sexy, white, 30 or it's like 22, and then I was like,
legit, yeah.
The fuck?
That's what their job postings
Their
say.
job posting.
Like you must have light skin.
It
You
was
must be
written.
5'2", whatever. It was like, it's posted. Like it's hung.
Just so blatantly.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
and the fact that it says that you need to be sexy in the fucking ad and you're a sales associate, that's like a call for HR here. And I just laughed. Well, I laughed and I said, are we really in dark times, like in the Philippines, like especially in Manila, because it's so westernized there? I don't know if that's the same thing in your culture in that Asian part. It's like the whiter that you are, the more superior you
Oh,
are.
for sure.
Or you look richer.
Yeah, I know. And that's why, like you were saying earlier about how Eurocentric beauty ideals are so deeply entrenched. Because I know when I was younger, even now, if someone says to me, you don't look Asian, I take that as a compliment. I mean, my initial reaction is like, oh, thanks. And then I have to dial it back and reconsider that wasn't cool.
Yeah, I am though.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's good that I look Asian. You were saying earlier, like where to draw the line with jokes.
Yeah.
I guess, and honestly, I have to be better about following through with this. But I feel like if someone of that race, if they're not represented, if they were there that day and they heard that joke, how would they feel?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, like in junior high, me and like my close group of friends, we were Asian. And one of our other friends who was white, she would call us the Rice Girls. And nobody said anything except one day the teacher was like, why do you call them that? That is so racist. And she's like, no, they don't mind. See, right? You guys, you don't mind. I call you the Rice Girls all the time. And at the time, we're like, oh yeah, okay, I guess we're the Rice Girls, right?
Not your call girl,
right? So, that's why I'm just curious because it's like, it's a joke, obviously, but like, is it? And
actually, I have an anecdote. It's not so much a joke, but when I was in grade 1, my best friend who was white came to school one day. She's like, I have a song to teach you because my sister taught it to me. She's like, okay, Chinese, Japanese, dirty knees make you sneeze.
What?
And she taught it to me, and I was just like, that is so funny. And you know what? I thought it was funny because of the representation, because there was so little representation around me. I'm like, my culture was mentioned in this song. This is so great.
Oh my God.
And so I went home and showed it to my mom because I was so proud. I thought it was so amusing. My mom was just so flabbergasted. She was like, that is not acceptable. So she like walked me back to school, pulled my friend aside. She's like, that was not okay. That was racist. You have to apologize to her. And I was so embarrassed. I remember yelling at my mom. But that's just like how deeply entrenched my internalized impression was. I was mad at myself for my mom having my back. And, to be fair, my friend didn't know either.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. We just didn't know. And that's not an excuse. But I still remember that to this day. And it was like, thinking back to it, who ever thought that was an okay song to teach children?
Right. Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even in the workplace, like, you know, my mom would complain about this boss that she used to work for, and it actually landed her in the hospital. And she works at the hospital with high blood pressure because she was shaking so much because he was such a dick. And I finally, like, he would just make really not nice comments to my mom, and my mom would tell me, and I was like, why are you like still working here? Why is that acceptable? So, probably the wrong thing to say, but you know, when you're mad, you just say whatever. I literally called him and I said, listen, if you think you picked on the wrong mom, because I literally called him and I said, what gives you the right to belittle my mom because she's in housekeeping? I said, let me tell you what my job is. My job, and of course, I belittled this person, which shouldn't. And I was like, just because you're white and you think that, Filipino people are cleaners. I was like, let me tell you what my job is. It's actually a lot more important than yours, which was totally wrong. But I told my mom, I was like, tell him to fuck off. Like, why do you go in the bathroom and cry? Like, I always try. And the thing is, I've even been taught that. It's like, just don't worry about it. Just, it's okay.
Yeah.
So do you think it's our fault because we were taught? Well, I don't want to say that because now we're all starting to speak up.
Yeah.
And when we were canvassing, a lot of like the all Asians that we just spoke to was like, thank you. Thank you for still talking about it because no one's talking about it still.
And that's exactly why people are going after the elder community because
they know they won't.
They know they're not going to fight back and they know that they're not going to say anything. But would they ever do that? Would they dare ever do that if they were walking with their kids who were born here? No.
True.
Guaranteed they wouldn't. True. So it's super cowardly.
And I don't know if it's fair to say it's our fault that we haven't stood up before because so much of it has been conditioned, right?
Yes.
Like
we're wired.
It's worked for us this long to not speak up. Like when my mom didn't say anything when that Italian store clerk yelled at her for looking at his olives. He's like, "Are you gonna buy anything?" Stuff like that. It just made things easier. She was allowed to go back there. There was no tension. So I feel like, because honestly, that is something I really struggle with. Like I sometimes do get upset because I have coworkers too who are Asian and like, I just never said anything. Like, why didn't you?
Yeah.
But I think it's good to start now.
Totally.
But I think it is interesting to explore. Sorry to be the questioner here, but why do you guys think that Asians haven't said anything in the past?
Well, that's just how I was conditioned. It's just like
what you said.
Like even till now, like I mean, we talked about it on our podcast. It's like you coast, you lay low, you shut the fuck up, and then you soar. Because here's what my parents taught me is like, because at the end, the Asian people are the richest people that go.
Bling empire.
Dude, that is,
right? Well, that's the model minority myth. That's the model minority myth.
And I was
right?
like, that's actually not true.
Yeah.
But, not all Asian people are rich.
Yeah.
But that's what we were taught. It was like, just fly under the radar.
Grind,
coast.
and then surprise them, and then they'll be jealous of you, and then they'll regret their words. But in the meantime, you've allowed them to treat you this way, and they're going to treat others who look like you the same way.
Yeah, 100%. And we were all wired like that. And it's really hard to change a trend when you're already, like, how old are we now? We're in our 30s. So it's hard to change that. And, it's also about, they tell you, like, to pick and choose your battles. And this happened, I moved to a Southeast community, and it's predominantly white. And I was tossing out some stuff. This was just like 2 years ago. I was tossing out some things, and there were these boys who were like sunbathing in their backyard. They looked about 17, and they were going, ni hao, ni hao. And I was like, what? And then Mark was like, don't do it. I'm like, did you hear that? And he's like, they're kids. It's not worth it. And I'm just like, I'm not going to go over there and be like, hey, howdy, partner. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, no, you should.
Right? Like, and I'm just like, oh, you stupid, ignorant kids. Yeah. And this was 2 years ago. And they were, and I'm just like.
First of all, here's Harleen going on a tangent.
I feel the fire already.
Hold on. Let me take a deep breath. First of all, why the fuck do you guys all think we're fucking Chinese?
Yes.
Okay? Some lady fucking called me a chink while I was at the LRT, and I turned around. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I was like, you know what? Thank you. That's fine. I think Chinese people are beautiful people, but thank you for associating, like, whatever. But I turned around and I said, listen, you fucking ignorant piece of shit. Learn your fucking geography first, because I'm not fucking Chinese. Like, I just, if you have nothing nice, just, I don't get what you're going to get. I try to take the high road. That's the thing. But I can't. I just can't. I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think I should do if someone said that to me to educate them without trying to lose my shit? Or should I just lose my shit because I'm allowed to?
Okay, so Trevor Noah, the comedian journalist.
Love him so much.
Me too. He had this line, he was like, something his mom taught him was that never show a racist that what they said hurt you. Like, never show them your pain. So he was like, what you do is shake it up with the love of Jesus, if you're a Christian, and throw it back at them. So what happened to him was he was on the streets, and there was a white truck that drove near him, rolls down their window and says, "Hey, N-word." And so what his response was, "You're my N-word." And it just, and he had a big smile on his face too. And the guy was so confused. The guy was white. And literally as he was driving, he just kept checking his hands like, oh my God, did I turn black?
Oh my God.
And so it's just that confusion, and it's just like not the natural response. But it is hard because I think the initial response would be like, fuck you.
Yeah,
how
'cause
dare
you're triggered.
you?
Yeah. Totally.
You're so triggered.
Yeah.
But we need to maybe like brainstorm like a witty response that's kind of funny and
True.
just exposes
Okay,
the
I like
absurdity
that.
of their comment. Because what is chink about anyway?
Yeah. Like, where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
And why is it insulting? It's like, yeah, I'm Asian, not the right one, but
That just makes you look like an idiot.
Exactly, but they can't see that, so we need to show them. We need
That's
to help
right.
them see how
Yeah.
stupid
Yeah.
they
Learn
are.
your geography. Maybe we should just all carry like little small maps of Asia and be like, do you see this place? I am
Filipino.
from here. This
Look
chain
how
of islands.
It's so far
and
from
this
each
is
other.
China.
Or like maybe we can try like killing them with kindness. Like maybe just start speaking Tagalog or Visayan and just like in a really happy voice, like, "Hi, how are you, fucking bitch?" And then she'll just be like, "What is going
It's
on?"
like, you're crazy. Well, that was one thing that I shared with you guys on that chat group. What happened to my son and when he was in Vancouver with his dad. Some guy literally asked them if they were Chinese. So of course, if anybody knows Jaden's dad, he was ready to fucking throw it down. Like, but his mom was there, and Jaden was there, and if his mom wasn't there, he probably would have been like, stick up for yourself. And so they should. But then his mom pulled him and he was like, no, don't condone it. Just, and
Just walk away.
Just walk away.
The typical,
But,
yeah.
But instead, he walked up to the car and he's like, I'm sorry, what did you say? He's like, are you Chinese? And he's like, do you fucking watch the news? He literally said that to him in the car. And he's like, there's all these the Asian, all these elderlies getting hurt. The Black Lives Matter movement, he's like, you Middle Eastern? That's what he said to the guy. And he goes, yeah, I'm Middle Eastern. And he goes, do you like being called a terrorist? Just like exactly all those things? He's like, think about what you're asking me right now. And he goes, and God bless you. And he walked away, and I was like,
and then mic drop.
And I was like, that's because he would never say that, but his mom was there, and and I guess using wit to go along the side with that of like just kind of shooing the ignorance with wit, I guess, could work, and they'd,
So we are almost out of time. Like we could talk about this all day.
We're almost out already.
We have so much to do still.
I know. It's honestly a topic that still needs to be recognized and amplified, because we proved yesterday when we were canvassing that it's really not talked about enough.
No.
Yeah.
And I just when doing some research, I read something with Global News where it says that it has become a troubling trend in our country with an increase in anti-Asian racism. And it's something members of the Calgary's Asian community and the Calgary Police Service said are on the rise. However, police said they don't have any statistics or a breakdown, but noted they have seen a rise in racialized hate crimes towards the Asian community. So for all the Asians out there, whether you think it's wrong or what people are saying, report it. Let's talk about it. Get into whether it's your friends, your family, whatever it is. Let's continue talking about it. Let's continue the movement with it, because if we don't come together, it will be a problem. I mean, it won't happen overnight, but let's all stick together. I mean, yeah, we joke around and everything else, but it has to come from us, and we have to start that movement. So before we go, I want to give Christina and Carole a chance to have, what do you guys have to tell on your platform and the community? What do you have to say?
I guess like one thing I really want to say is that stop asking people of color, BIPOC, whether or not a situation is racist when they've told you it's racist. Like, there's a great line from the author of the book, So You Want to Talk About Race, where she says, if a person of color says it's about race, it's about race. Don't question them. It's not saying that every single person's going to be right, but because they're a person of color, they've lived through enough experiences, they've experienced enough microaggressions, they've heard it from people in their community that, sure, maybe it's made them sensitive, but they are coming from a place where they've seen this happening. So if they are raising alarm, don't gaslight them, don't dismiss them, because that is the worst thing you can ever do. Don't ask them, are you sure? Are you sure it wasn't in your head? Maybe you're just on an off day. Are you sure they shouldn't mean it with that tone? You're overthinking it. Because that's the most invalidating thing we can ever experience, and we don't need that right now. So I think, that's just what I want people to take home with.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think for me, it's just, like, Asian people out there, you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're all of these amazing things, and just remember that, right? And I think anyone that, isn't Asian and has questions, like, come talk to us about it, right? Like, we're not scary people. We're here to educate. We want to continue this movement. We want to continue this dialogue. So please feel free to direct message any of us, right? Because I think the biggest thing is a conversation. Keep talking about it, educating yourself, trying different food items, right? And when you're looking at recipes, be mindful of what we chatted about today. And, think about the fact that if you love our food, please stand up with us as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ladies. Yes. It has been, this is not the first nor the last. I know it. Thank you again.
Yes.
For coming on the show.
Yeah, and you guys got to check these ladies out. They're doing amazing things. Studio Sister Cooking with Chow has her own series, and she films what she cooks. And then Carole,
whatever,
Miss whatever, Carole Yue has.
I got a lot of love for you, Carole. Come on, she's a baddie. Oh my,
she is. I love it. And she has
you know my comments. Like, you are like fire, meow. You're everything. You are like my spirit.
She is amazing.
She's so beautiful.
Yeah, her and her friend Paula have also a podcast called The Commie Tea Room. Check that out. We'll also link these guys in our episode notes. And thank you guys for continuing to support your girls. And anything else from you, Har?
That's it, guys. We always say on our podcast, just be kind.
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be kind.
Yeah. Love each other.
Love each other.
And love yourselves.
Yes. Love yourselves.
Yeah.
Most. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it for us. We're going to wrap up now. So at the end of the day, wash your hands, wear your masks, and love yourself. Love yourself, even on the hardest days.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.